Thank you for joining us. I'm Mayor Satya Rhodes-Conway, and we're here to share some updates on the Metro Rapid, Madison's bus rapid transit system. Metro Rapid is going to connect residents, jobs, retail, education, and healthcare in one easy-to-use and rapid transit network. The route that we've chosen through Madison will provide front door access to the heart of Madison's retail, employment, cultural, medical, and educational institutions. We will have approximately 120,000 jobs, 80,000 residents, 3 hospitals, 2 higher educational institutions, all within a 10-minute walk of Metro Rapid. State Street is part of the Metro Rapid routing, not because we don't care about State Street, but because State Street is a critical destination in our city. It's a cultural and retail destination. It's part of the heart of the city that we want all residents, from far east to far west, from north to south, to have easy access to. Bus Rapid Transit will have 2 stops at the top of State Street, and it will run on 3 of the 8 blocks of State Street, the 100 to 300 blocks. About 250,000 people boarded buses on Upper State Street in 2019, the majority of whom we assume interacted with businesses on State Street, either before or after their transit ride. Bus Rapid Transit will bring more customers and theater goers and diners and other visitors to the street, not fewer. And we believe that bringing more customers directly to State Street is a major plus for our community, not a minus. Many cities have found that Bus Rapid Transit increases business development and revitalization, and I am confident that Madison will experience this as well. The plain fact is, our city cannot continue to grow without finding a more efficient way to transport people. Our streets will soon once again be at capacity, and we simply cannot meet travel demand without significant investment in transit. Now, it's true over the past year and a half that our downtown has been very hard hit. There's no doubt that downtown businesses in particular have had a rough time of it. In June of 2020, Alderperson Verveer and I proposed $500,000 to help the downtown recover, but that plan did not fly with the Common Council at the time. This year, I proposed, and the Common Council supported, a number of programs that will assist the downtown business district and other business districts with revitalization. These programs include a $500,000 retail building improvement grant program, a $300,000 neighborhood business district support program, and a $100,000 downtown art program, in addition to the existing small business equity and recovery program and the Madison pop-up shop program. Next year, we'll be establishing a tax increment financing district to support further recovery and redevelopment on State Street. Business owners have had legitimate concerns over the impacts of the proposed changes on State Street, and in particular, that larger bus rapid transit stations could block the views of their windows and take up too much space. We have consulted with many store owners to understand their concerns in detail, and today we are releasing modified station designs for State Street that are considerably, and by considerably I mean 60%, smaller and more transparent, and which will have much less of an impact on visibility and business storefronts. I'd like to show you those pictures now. So, the first image, you can see the earliest shelter concept that we had, which is not what we're proposing now. In this next image, you can see the designs that we're releasing today. Again, a significantly smaller shelter, much more porous visually, much more space to see the storefront. So that's one of the locations. The next slide shows you the existing conditions at our second location. And now you'll see the proposed shelter. So as you can see, the new shelter proposal that we have is essentially putting a shelter of exactly the same size as what we've currently got on a platform that will still allow access to the rapid transit system while having much less of an impact on our State Street businesses. The design that we're announcing today represents stations that have smaller platforms, reduced from 75 feet to 50 feet. And these platforms, it's important to note, are particularly useful for our differently abled folks who need accommodations to reach the transit. The shelters are about the same size as what exists today on State Street. They've been redesigned to reduce the visual impact of the shelter and to, again, allow you to see through that shelter towards the storefronts more easily. And sidewalk cafe and street vending areas will not be affected by the shelters or the platforms. These new designs are based on what we heard from downtown stakeholders, and I believe they represent a reasonable compromise. I believe that we can, and in fact must, accommodate the legitimate concerns raised by business owners and at the same time reap the benefits of a rapid transit system for our residents, our economy, and our transportation system. Madison has been pursuing high-capacity rapid transit for 30 years, and we have never been able to pull it off until now. With $80 million set aside in President Biden's budget, Madison is on the brink of success. Our federal bus rapid transit application is one of only 6 in the nation that were recommended for funding in fiscal year 2022 out of 35 applicants. We need to take advantage of this historic moment and finally bring rapid transit to our great city. Delays this late in the game are not only unproductive, but they would be foolhardy. I'd like to pass the podium now to Justin Stuenberg, who's the director of Metro Transit, to give a little more background on our bus rapid transit system, and then we'll take questions.
Good afternoon. Bus rapid transit is a more frequent, faster, and more reliable bus system that uses larger buses to transport more riders. BRT's features include frequent all-day service, direct routes with fewer stops. It utilizes special traffic signals to help buses get through intersections faster, dedicated bus lanes, stations with off-board fare payment, and larger buses. BRT will help to alleviate congestion on our streets. One of the key benefits of BRT is that larger buses travel in dedicated lanes where possible, which will improve traffic flow for drivers. Increased BRT and bus ridership will also decrease the number of drivers in the corridor, helping to mitigate roadway congestion. Metro Rapid will run along East Washington, around the Capitol, through the University of Wisconsin-Madison campus, continuing west on University Avenue and Mineral Point Road to through the Westtown Mall. The alignment is approximately 15 miles in length and will connect key activity centers such as Madison College, downtown Madison, the UW-Madison campus, the Capitol, and government buildings, major employers located throughout the corridor, including CUNA Mutual, University Research Park, and several shopping centers. The route includes 31 station locations, and the 60-foot buses will run in a combination of dedicated lanes and mixed traffic with priority traffic signals at the stations. We've been working to address legitimate State Street business concerns over the last several years. In 2019 studies, it was clear that the value of the Square and State Street stations were to transit riders. However, it was also clear that there are nuisances created by buses, particularly in the summer months. During peak hours, high volumes of buses stack up at intersections on State Street. Bus idling is loud and detracts from outdoor dining, and fumes can be noticeable. Over the past 2 years, we've taken several actions to reduce these real concerns, including pursuing a bus lane on West Washington, which is to be installed this summer. This will allow Metro to remove many local routes from State Street. In the Metro Network Redesign project, which is currently underway, All local routes are currently proposed to be relocated from State Street to Johnson and Gorham and Wilson Broome pairs. Premium service, BRT, using primarily electric buses, is routed on State Street to reduce volumes, noise, and fumes. In 2024, when BRT is implemented, Upper State Street will have 60% fewer buses during the peak hour than existed in 2019. The majority of those buses on State Street will be electric and have much lower noise levels than the existing fleet. Lower State Street is likely to have no buses at all, and the 10 current bus stops likely to be consolidated into just 2 along the entirety of State Street. State Street service will not be impacted, though, in that there will be a bus every 5 minutes through much of the day to shuttle people throughout the city, and consistent service throughout almost the entire day from 6 a.m. to midnight, connecting State Street to East and West Town malls, as well as various points in between. The multi-year public consultation process involved over 14 public meetings and 7,000 contacts and responses. The Capitol Square and 3 blocks of State Street were identified as part of the locally preferred routing because it provides the most direct access to the visible economic and cultural centers of the city. It provides opportunity to transfer from local routes to BRT easily. Eastbound and westbound stations are within eyesight of each other. And with this selection, it was acknowledged that BRT would be detoured for events. And the year-round benefits to riders outweigh the detours that routinely occur already. The BRT routing has formally been adopted by the city after extensive public engagement and has been submitted to the federal government. Our federal BRT application is one of only 6 nationwide recommended for funding next year. This locally preferred option routing was evaluated by the Federal Transit Administration, given a medium-high rating in May of 2021 and an excellent rating for a Midwestern city, and recommended $80 million in federal funding in the fiscal year 2022 federal transportation budget. Any delay could put this $160 million infrastructure project at risk, which will bring good-paying jobs to the city and serve as an economic lifeline for hundreds of thousands in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Be happy to take questions, if there are any. Abby? Yeah, that's a great question, Abby. Thank you. And I'll take a stab, but Justin, if you have anything to add, and also Tom Lynch, our Director of Transportation, is here. Any system design is an exercise in compromise between a bunch of different needs. For bus rapid transit in particular, you actually want those stops to be less frequent, farther apart from each other. It's part of the rapid feature of the system. So the important thing to remember is that we're building out Metro Rapid and at the same time doing a redesign of our existing Metro Transit bus system, which will obviously still be there as we build out the Metro Rapid system. So for the bus rapid transit stops, again, you want those to be farther apart and less frequent. Our local system will be overlaid on that and built to encourage transfers between the rapid system and the local system to hopefully find that right compromise to meet everybody's needs. Yeah. Other questions? Well, so one of the things that we have heard from folks on State Street is the impact of the local system buses, the current buses that we have, in terms, and Justin referenced this, in terms of how they stack up at intersections. You can have 2 or even 3 buses at a time. The impact of their emissions on folks that are trying to experience the pleasure of being on State Street, the noise. So I think it's important that we have heard those concerns and are responding to them in a number of ways. And so again, part of that is by moving to electric buses, which are zero emission and much quieter vehicles just overall. And then part of that is by reducing the number of vehicles that will be on the street. And so part of that reduction is the current, and I have to emphasize, this has not been approved by the City Council yet, but the current thinking is that the 400 through 600 blocks of State Street will likely not have any transit on them in the future. Yeah.
Will the cut in state transportation aid approved in the biennial budget impact this project at all?
My hope is that it will not, because we are working directly with the federal government and then providing local funding. But the cut in state transportation aids will obviously impact our transit system over the long run. I'm extremely disappointed in the legislature for targeting Madison and Milwaukee. There are, I should say, other transit systems in the state and other cities that received federal aid, but for some reason the legislature saw fit only to target Madison and Milwaukee. I'll leave it up to you to decide why that might be. But yeah, I'm very disappointed in that cut. We are still figuring out how we're going to address that. I am committed to having it not impact our Metro Rapid system, but there obviously will be long-term financial impacts for the city overall. Yeah.
Does the redesign of these stations affect the overall project budget one way or another?
Not significantly. Any other questions? Yeah.
Have the business improvement district or here or others seen this new design?
We gave a preview to these new designs to the Alder and to the individual businesses that would be impacted, but we're releasing them to the public today.
Mayor, if the BRT is not going down to those lower 3 blocks, is it moving over to other side streets to get to that area? Otherwise, or are people who would need to get to, say, Library Mall expected to walk the three blocks up State Street? Is that their closest location to catch the bus?
It's an excellent question. We always anticipated that the BRT routing would be on the first 3 blocks of State Street and then go on to the Johnson-Gorham pair, which then takes you to the university. So depending on where you are, it might be that the State Street stops are your closest stops, or it might be that a University Ave stop would be your closest stop. Any other questions? All right, I appreciate you all coming. I know a few of you have questions on other topics for me, which I'll be happy to take in just a minute.